The little video that we just saw was a bulb check on the blind spot warning indicator in the mirror, and that's what it's supposed to look like. I'm dealing with a 2017 Nissan Titan that sets C1B51 in both rear radar units immediately. As soon as you turn the button on or start it, it does its bulb check and immediately sets this code in both control units. The threshold, short circuit and blind spot warning indicator circuit is detected. Overcurrent is detected. Very important to know. Of course, when the ignition turns on. So here's a little side-by-side comparison of a 2017 and an 18 Titan. The system is exactly the same. It even takes the exact same part numbers as far as these radar controllers. The wire colors are the same. Everything's the same. So I felt confident getting my known good from an 18, although the 17 was the vehicle that I had a problem with. So each one of these radar control units, they are their own control unit. They all communicate on the CAN. This is not the little round circles that are in your bumper. The little round circles are the sonar. That's kind of the stuff that keeps you from backing over your trash can or your kids or whatever in the morning when you're leaving for work, or ramming the boat hitch into your bumper. That's the stuff that beeps at you. These radar units are for the ADAS system. They monitor vehicles in your blind spot to keep you from merging into them. So if someone's too close, the little indicator comes on in the mirror, lets you know that somebody's in your blind spot, not to merge. This is a driver assistance system, so it is very sensitive, and it really has to keep an eye on all the wires constantly, which I kind of learned that. So with this truck, basically when you turn it on or you bulb check, it would run its bulb check and then set the code that I showed you. Immediately, it would set the same code in both control units. I'm focusing on the right-hand side. It was just closer to my toolbox, the passenger side of the vehicle, because I was confident that if I found the problem with the right side, it would be the same problem with the left side. So rather than running back and forth, I just focused on the right side. I 100% load tested all powers and grounds. That's kind of par for the course when I'm dealing with these crazy ones. CAN network seemed to be spot on. I'm not going to go over all those captures. The code set criteria was for overcurrent, basically in this wire here. This wire or this mirror. Now this mirror is a factory tow mirror, and it has a pigtail that kind of routes through the corner of the door and plugs into the main harness within the door panel, which is right here. So I'm doing all my testing at the mirror. I can't get to the actual LED inside the mirror, but I'm at the harness as close as I can get to it. The first Pico capture I'm going to put up is the bad capture. I have never seen a capture like that before, but I've seen a million pulsed signals, and I'll go over that, my thoughts on it. But this just shows that the 17 and the 18 are exactly the same, and the known good at the end is going to come from an actual 18. But I'm 100% confident that the diagnosis on this truck was good, due to some substitutions and creativity that I had to do to prove it out. So I'm going to go ahead and put up the first capture, which is the bad capture, and it's going to be right here at the mirror. The only difference is when I show you the known good, it's going to be right here at number 4, because it's a truck that came in for regular service, and I just crawled underneath of it real quick, back probed 4 to get my known good. I actually back probed both sides and did a bulb check, and that'll be my known good. It was taken at number 4 because I didn't want to take the door panel off of a customer's truck that's in for an oil change. So Um, I'm going to go ahead and put the bag capture up and give you my thoughts on that. All right, here's the bag capture. Back probed at the mirror. First, this is bulb check. Basically, I just push the button, it bulb checks and goes off. And you can see it bulb checks for about 2.8 seconds. Couple of things. The spec said 6 volts in the service manual that I showed at the beginning. Usually when I see an odd number like 6 volts or 4 volts, I automatically think it's a pulse signal, because most people use a voltmeter, and if you use a voltmeter to check a pulse signal, a voltmeter averages. A voltmeter takes a sample about every 4 seconds, where my scope takes a sample every millionth of a second. So, or the way it's set up on this capture. So anytime I see an odd number like 6 volts, 4 volts, 10 volts, I automatically think a pulse signal. So now I'm already thinking that this vehicle should have a pulse signal during bulb check. So let me zoom in. And this is the weirdest pulse signal that I've ever seen. First off, total voltage is about 10.5 volts. A little low because I know the battery was charged up on this, but I'm gonna let that one slide, just keep it in the back of my mind. What I don't like is this. Usually a pulse signal goes straight up and straight down. I measured this out. This is a 120 hertz signal. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but 120 hertz, basically it's turning on and off about twice a second. That's so fast that your eye couldn't tell. If you think about it, most fluorescent bulbs in your shop or whatever, they cycle at 60 hertz, and if you look at them, you can't even tell. It just looks like it's on solid. So this is cycling at 120 hertz, which makes it look like a solid on. So my thought process going into this is, I know that that wire is not shorted, because if it were shorted, it would be, you know, at 0. My code set criteria says overcurrent. When I hear overcurrent, I think short. I believe that the instant this computer sends 12 volts down, it did not like it. If you remember the wiring diagram, the mirror's always grounded. The control unit pulses power to turn the bulb on, to let you know someone's in your blind spot. My thinking, I have no way to prove this. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an electronic guru. I'm just thinking out loud. I think that the very first pulse this thing sent, it did not like it. I know for a fact that computers have a way to monitor current. I mean, if you look at a coil current, if you've ever looked at a current ramp, the top of the ramp is flat at the top. That means the control unit cut the current. It was able to monitor it and control it. This being a safety system, I am certain this thing is watching that signal wire for any sort of current flow. I don't have an amp clamp low enough to monitor this current. I did put a voltmeter in line to check current, and this was in the microamps, not even milliamps. This thing was flowing microamps of current. But there's no way to know what the spec is. So once I was 100% confident, powers, grounds, this signal line itself is not shorted to ground, I either have a control unit that is thinking illogically, but remember, both sides have the same problem. So do I have 2 bad control units? Do I have 2 bad shorted wires? Or do I have 2 bad LEDs in mirrors? It is a tough call. That's why I named this pain in my ADAS, because every part other than the wire harness is expensive, and I've got to make a call. So what I decided to do is I thought outside the box a little bit. The bulb, or the LED that's in the mirror, is an LED. So I'm trying to think of ways that I can trick that control unit. So what I decided to do was I took a snap-on LED test light and I put it in place of the mirror. So basically I depinned the one wire, it was terminal 23, that would actually power the light in the mirror, and I put an LED test light. Why not? You know, why not? Let's just see what the control unit thinks of it, because it obviously is not happy with the mirror that's on the truck. These mirrors are $750 a piece, and that's a big pill to swallow if you're wrong. Why this is doing this is beyond me. I just know that this is not right. If this truly is a pulse signal, it's like it's being controlled. This thing is perfectly the same throughout the entire bulb check. And usually when I see things that are uniform and precisely controlled, my brain says the control unit is doing it. This is not by luck. This signal looks like this because the control unit doesn't know what to do, so it's limiting the amount of power. It is controlling this and doing this. You know, I don't know how else to describe it, and I'm not even sure I'm 100% on that. But usually when I see odd stuff, I feel like the control unit's doing it. So my next capture I'm going to put up is I substituted an LED test light in place of the mirror, and it's kind of cool. So hang on. All right, this is the capture with me substituting an LED test light in place of the mirror. I think in the last segment I mentioned that a voltmeter takes a sample every 4 seconds. I'm wrong on that. They take 4 samples a second. Sometimes I get a little excited and misspeak. It happens. All right, so what I've done here is I've substituted a LED test light. I had my foot on the brake, so this thing actually started. That's why you see all this, and then it jumps up. It's cranking, and then it starts, and then the alternator picks up, and then it smooths out. The screen fell off the end right there. I didn't save both screens, but it still bulb checked for 2.8 seconds. Here's the beauty of it. It bulb checked. It did not set the code. So what I've done is I've changed, for lack of a better word, the resistance of the LED. For some reason, well, I know the reason now, the control unit likes the snap-on LED test light. It did not set the code. Let me go in here where it's actually smooth. So we're still dealing with a 123. I'm a little off on my thing here, but it's still basically a 120 hertz signal. Voltage wise, it's still, well, it's over 12 now because this car's actually running. Don't think that really mattered. I'm still not going fully to ground, and I still having this swoopy thing here. But I borrowed a test light from another guy, and I wired it into the other mirror, and I drove this vehicle, and it was perfect. People would get in the blind spots, it would light the little LEDs up. It was happy with 2 LED test lights. It was not happy with the mirrors on the truck. After further investigation, the mirrors on the truck were aftermarket. They were 100% knockoff. They looked identical to OE, but there were certain stickers up inside where the mirror mounts to the door, And my body shop guy immediately recognized the part numbers. He goes, "Oh yeah, these are blah 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 blah. They make aftermarket headlights and this and that and the other." This truck had 2 aftermarket mirrors on it, and evidently the LEDs or the circuitry around the LEDs or whatever it takes to make these bulbs work, these control units did not like it. They pulled too much current. I can tell you, I measured the current in microamps from my test light versus the bad mirrors, and it was about 200 microamps less or difference between my LED test light and the bad mirrors. But this signal, although it still looks a bit weird, fit the parameters for this control unit. It worked fine. I was glad to see this because now I'm confident that I've got 2 bad mirrors. And in fact, I pulled the other mirror off and they were both aftermarket mirrors. Just to look at them, I looked at these mirrors for a long time. I didn't know they were aftermarket. Once I compared side by side, you could see subtle differences. But unless you're really, really honing in on it, you just can't walk up to this truck and say, "Yep, those are aftermarket mirrors." This was a real eye-opener. I guess this post is mainly about, just knowing what a basic signal looks like. But with these ADAS systems, man, they are finicky. In this day and age of people trying to save a few bucks, which I'm good with that, and the aftermarket can obviously offer that versus OE, what's a person to do? It'd have been nice to know that right after I put these mirrors on, my truck had this problem, but that information is never given. But here's the real kicker. Wait till you see the known good. This truck was fixed with 2 LED test lights. The mirrors were $750 a piece. So that's what, $1,500 were the mirrors. The customer did not want to put mirrors on the truck. I think he might have junkyarded. Not sure. I haven't seen the truck back. But what I did do is I got an 18 rolled in. A couple of days later, I back probed it, and I got my known good. And then I was completely blown away. So wait till you see the known good. Like I said, this is not a perfect capture, but this was good enough for the control units never to code, and the system worked like it should even while driving it. And so let me show you the known good, and then we'll talk about that. So hang on. This is the known good. And I was blown away when I saw this. All right, first off, it's 10.35. This is just key on, bulb check. It bulb checked for about 3 seconds. There is no pulsing at all in the known good. It is just a straight up 12 volts or voltage back to ground. So the service manual said 6 volts. This is a known good from an 18. It's at 10. I thought when I saw 6 volts, it should have been a pulse signal. It's actually not a pulse signal. What I'm thinking is in the bad capture, it did not like the current. So it pulsed it to control it. Maybe to keep the system intact. It would set a code and then the system became inoperative. When I did the test light experiment, it checked the signal, it checked the current, it checked the circuit. It didn't like it, but it liked it good enough to keep the system activated, and the system still worked, but it still pulsed it because it was on the fence. Well, maybe it's a little bit too much current, maybe it's not, but we're going to keep the system alive. But the test light had enough resistance to where it liked it enough to make the system work. This truck rolls in for regular maintenance with no problems. It's actually the truck that's in the video at the very beginning. And it's not pulsed at all. Of course, it has all factory stuff on it. It is a factory stock truck with no problems. So it just blew me away when I saw that. I was expecting to see 120 hertz pulse signal, nice square to the ground, but this is what I got. I'm confident that the 18 is the same as the 17. I've checked the part numbers of the radar units. You saw the wiring diagram. It is identical. So I've learned a lot with this deal. The control unit is picky. It's monitoring that signal. If it hates it, it won't work. If it kind of likes it and it's within its program parameters, it'll let the system work. And then obviously this is perfect. So that's kind of why I posted this. Kind of neat, actually very neat. I'm going to keep checking other trucks because now I'm really intrigued. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was definitely an adventure. This truck really kicked my butt. Pain in the ADAS. We'll just leave it at that. So hope you enjoyed this video. If something comes up and I find a 17 and it's a pulse signal, I don't know how I could add to this video or amend it or something, but I will make good on it because I don't want to put out misinformation. Not the purpose of the channel. But here's an 18. No pulsing. Does not look like service information. The service manual kind of is wrong. For lack of a better word, it's wrong. Because even an 18 said 6 volts. Approximate. Now, approximate could be a big word there because at 1 volt, it could be 12. Is that their approximate? Not to me, it's not. But hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching this long. And we'll look forward to the next one. My eScan people, if you're listening to the end, I'm working on stuff right now for eScan. I'll get it out when I can, is all I can say. But thanks again for watching.